Food content is now a major staple on YouTube, but when baker Gemma Stafford launched her channel in 2014, there were hardly any professional chefs on the platform. This early mover advantage allowed her and her husband Kevin Kurtz to build up a massive audience that used Gemma's tutorials in their own baking efforts. Then a few years ago, they teamed up with media veteran Ronald Pruett Jr. to launch the Bold Baking Network, a streaming platform that syndicates content from hundreds of baking creators all across the world. In a recent interview, Kevin and Ron walked through the company's origin story, how they monetized Gemma's videos, and why they decided to expand beyond YouTube and build their own platform. Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. If you want to listen to an audio version of this episode, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're a longtime fan of this show, you're probably aware that it's not monetized with ads. I'm entirely reliant on paid subscriptions to my Substack newsletter to fund this show. If you want me to keep delivering you interviews with the world's most successful media entrepreneurs, then subscribe for just $50 a year. Go to simonowens.substack.com. That's simonowens.substack.com. Or just Google the words Simon Owens and newsletter. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey, Kevin and Ron, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So super excited to talk about this network that you've created centered around this baking influencer. I'd love to maybe just start and just hear a little bit about your backgrounds and how you came to know each other. I know both of you have a deep background. Kevin, you worked at Lucasfilm, and Ron, you worked for a number of different media properties. I think you guys were working together with maybe like Al Roker or something like that, and that's how you met?
I think it started in live streaming, right,
Yeah.
Ron? Live stream video.
Yes, I like to say that we were pioneers, which is code for being too early and not making any money.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
were you doing live streaming with Al, or what was it?
Yeah, I'll pick up, and that's how I met Kevin and Gemma. We started off early looking at home shopping networks and trying to figure out, this is probably around 2015, 2016, how we could import the model that was developing in China into the US and do it on platforms like Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, Meerkat, Vine, all these different platforms that were blossoming at the time, and create networks out of live streaming.
And when you say like China, so like I know with WeChat, they've long had integrations with, almost like a QVC where everything is like the social media and the e-commerce are kind of melded together.
Yes, and that was primarily my background, being in companies that were like As Seen on TV, or that were more home shopping centric. So definitely commerce centric. And then working with Al and Al Roker Entertainment really put me into the, I'd say, storytelling business, which, to be honest, was somewhat new to me, other than what one might do on home shopping. And along came my relationship with Kevin and Gemma. Kevin, obviously, expert at that with his background. So we became friends and then partners, and it started to meld. The outcome of the live streaming efforts were looking at ways to build platforms around individuals like Gemma and what Kevin had built, and then creators, and then into like a hub and spoke system for other channels. So Kevin has built a lot of that.
Yeah, and truly the way we thought about it, Simon, is Gemma Stafford is a professional chef. She has an extensive background working around the world, originally from Ireland, and had this pretty incredible background. My background in media and entertainment. And what we saw about 12 years ago was the Food Network was the game show network. Fast forward to today, the Food Network is still the game show network.
As in food competitions and stuff like that.
Competition show. So what they were really missing was this idea of helping a generation or many generations of people learn how to cook and learn how to bake. And so Gemma and I saw that, and while we had never, produced anything on our own, we saw this opportunity. We saw this audience that we believe was underserved, that we'll continue to go back to, this home baking audience that we could connect with. And I had been working in mobile gaming at the time at a company called Zynga. And through that experience, especially through mobile in 2011 and 2012, I learned that if you can create great content, you can connect with and build audiences around the world. And that's really what kicked us off in creating Bigger, Bolder Baking and having this vision for something larger than that, which was the Bold Baking Network.
And so you and Gemma were married at that point?
We were, yes.
Yeah.
So we met.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Keep on going.
Yeah. Go for it.
And so what did you do? Did you just set up a tripod and start filming her baking, doing baking tutorials? Like what was the actual introduction of the
Yeah.
YouTube channel?
Yeah, yes and no, which is to say, we quit our adult jobs in San Francisco. She wound down her catering business. I left Zynga, and we were going to give it a go, which is to say, we went all in. We moved from San Francisco to Los Angeles, not for the industry, but more for like a change of kind of quality of life and to start anew. And we really honed in on YouTube back then, which in looking at the space, I'm sure you have for so long, it wasn't that complex back then. It wasn't that big back then. And so to give you an example, there were no other professional chefs on YouTube. So as we began to look at the food space, there were some great creators back then, some of which are still around, most of whom are gone. And we really honed in on, okay, where could we stand out? Where could we differentiate? Number one, it was focusing in on baking because Gemma had that passion. She had that expertise. And number two, we did just what you said, which is we came up with what we were all about. Bigger, Bolder Baking came from the start, the idea of it. The initial idea was accessible recipes, but with over-the-top results. And even though I was a marketing and brand guy, I taught myself how to shoot and edit. Gemma had never hosted a show before, so she had to learn. We started very small, just small amount of equipment, not trying to bring a bazooka to a knife fight. And we wanted to learn and every week get better. And what happened was, after a few weeks, we started to get more comments. We started to answer every single comment, something that we still do to today. And we've answered more than 1 million comments. And after a few months, the audience started to call themselves bold bakers. After our Bigger, Bolder Baking show, they found themselves, they created the tribe, something as a marketer I never could have done. And we simply listened to the audience, we connected with the audience, and we really were able to build and hone our brand at that time by having that sort of interaction on YouTube.
And this was like,
I'd add there. Sorry, I would just say that Gemma is also a natural, on the camera. So she has a very nice way about her, and I think that also made it extremely, effective for the video.
And this was like 2012, 2013, or
2014. So
2014,
we started February of 2014. So we just celebrated 11 years.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you started building some traction like pretty quickly. Possibly, obviously she was talented, but also it sounds like there wasn't a lot of competition, far less competition back then in the baking space. So how did you, before Ron came on, how were you monetizing the channel? Because back then, like the creator economy was very small compared to today. Like YouTube's like ad partnership thing was still just ramping up, and the paychecks were still pretty paltry. Obviously, a lot of brands were only just sort of like starting to sign on with like influencer marketing and stuff like that. So how did you approach monetization?
Simon, somebody told us when we started our own business, and especially in this new space, which is to say, there were business models that had existed previously, but still it was the Wild West as far as kind of how things were shaking out. And the advice was, you're going to spend all of your money. You'll probably make some of that back. And then you'll spend more money to be able to grow. And you'll probably make some of that back. And if you can survive that, you'll get there. It was years, really, until we were able to effectively monetize. And that's even with tens of millions of views. We hit some very, very, I'll use the word viral for sure back then, because I think it meant more videos, but primarily it was advertising driven. What we did very quickly in about a year, though, is realize that while I had originally expected instead of a website, we'd build an app because I was coming from the app space and coming from mobile, I simply realized search and search authority, and building our brand and building a durable brand and authority is incredibly important. And so fast forward to today, our largest platform is our website. So our website, from an advertising standpoint, sponsorship standpoint, all of that was incredibly important. What we layered on over time were some of the other buckets. As you said, brand sponsorships still even today are not very sophisticated. I mean, it shocks me, and I get on my soapbox of coming from, big budgets and working with big companies. But in the ad world, Wieden and Kennedy working with Nike has a production budget. They have a media planning budget. They have tons of different buckets that they go into. But when brands were looking to work with us early on, they were coming with a working media budget, maybe. And they're still kind of doing the same thing today, where we represent that we're vertically integrated. We have talent, strategy, marketing, production, and distribution to an audience who knows us, and we can speak with them. And so, again, early on, even brand sponsorships and things didn't come around for a few years. Just going through the flow, Gemma was able to launch 2 successful cookbooks, so licensing was part of that as well. But as Ron alluded to, and really where our partnership is truly leading towards, is we believe great content. We're very focused on an underserved audience, and we want to own that relationship. We have a community that's incredibly important, but the commerce element is definitely that important element that we are making now a lot of strides in.
Were you prioritizing the website from day one, like alongside the YouTube channel?
About a year in. And so, like I said, I mean, it was no joke. I was about a year in and was like, we should probably build an app. Wait a minute, a website makes a lot more sense. And so when anybody asks me, even today, what's the greatest platform? What's the most important platform that you should spend time and money on? It's our website. It's not other people's platforms. It's our platform. And our strategy has been to reach, get discovery, and then definitely aggregate and drive. And that's exactly what we're looking to do with TV as well, which is to say, use much larger platforms to be able to reach, to be able to build audiences, and then to be able to migrate them to platforms that we truly control.
What were you publishing on the website other than embedding in the new YouTube videos?
We early on were primarily doing the recipe, the videos. But as I said, at about a year in, we started to get into, the word is blog and blogger. I don't use that word. Similar to, we can chat about, I don't use the word influencer. There are other terms that, we like to use, primarily because we were building a media company from the start. Gemma is a professional chef. And so what I get to is, there have been very successful blogs, very successful recipe blogs, creating recipes. And what we realized though early on was YouTube's a great platform to reach people, but we didn't want to just reach people and get views. We wanted people to actually make the recipes. That virtuous loop of watch, then go to the website, then actually go make the recipe, share it back with us, where we would upload photos of what they made to our website. That was the most loyal and the most core sort of fan. You couldn't do that on YouTube. You can't still do that on YouTube. And we didn't want to do that on somebody else's platform. So that's a lot of what we started building in our iterations of the website, was create great content, create it so that people can actually make the recipe, because that's what we're all about, and then give them abilities to be able to ask us questions, to be able to share back with us, and be a part of a thriving community.
How do they ask questions?
Comments primarily, as far as coming in. As I mentioned, we've answered more than 1 million comments across platforms. We have a team around the world now. It used to be just Gemma. It was then Gemma and me. One of our first employees was actually Gemma's mom, Pat, from Ireland, who would answer comments because she was a baker as well, not a professional like Gemma, but definitely knew her stuff. And today, again, we have a team around the world, because we believe if we're creating this sort of content and we want people to be bold, confident bakers, that we need to be there for them when they have questions or when they have any sort of successes even to share.
So you started in 2014. When did Ron come into the picture?
Around 2016, 17,
Right.
2017.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, a few years in, and even back then, Simon, we were what we were trying to do is figure out how to go from Bigger Bolder Baking and Gemma, which we had established, to not the Food Network, but the Baking Network, as far as this grander vision of diverse voices in baking, people with different expertise, whether it's around bread or gluten-free, keto, different dietary preferences, or people who grew up in other places around the world, like Gemma did, and tell their stories because we knew the Food Network would not tell their stories, and so that definitely resonated with Ron. I think he obviously got that through his work with Al and his entire career. But we never knew where that was going to live. We originally thought that maybe the network would be on our site on biggerbolderbaking.com. We were then for a while thinking YouTube, but that doesn't make sense because it's very linear and it tends to be very single creator focused and with rare exceptions. And it was about 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, where Ron and I really accelerated, and Ron, Gemma, and I really accelerated our strategy here, which is when we saw what was going on with free ad supported streaming television and that connected television was having a moment and now continues to kind of have a moment in the streaming world, we said, listen, it's not about just syndicating our content. It's not about just selling a show. It's not about going to Netflix or Amazon and getting some big production budget to build something. We want to go build a channel. We want to build a 24/7, 365-day-a-year baking experience because there's an underserved audience of bakers around the world that we've quantified. We actually know roughly they're 80% of households in the United States. We have tons of reach around the world. They don't have access to a baking network. And so TV really was what was the catalyst for us, moving forward, full steam ahead. And lastly, what I like to say is, YouTube is all about this primarily, even though they're doing a little bit more of shorts. But there are only two places right now that are really focused on horizontal 16:9 content, which is YouTube and television. And so even syndicating 11 years and thousands of hours of content, we saw an opportunity there and we began to pull together our Bold Baking Network, what I like to call our Avengers of Baking, where everybody has their own expertise and their background. And individually, they're great, but together, they're even more powerful and can connect with audiences around the world.
So we'll get to talking about the FAST network soon. Just to make sure I understand the linear progression. So Ron, did you guys start talking because you were originally trying to pull them into the live streaming thing that you were doing? Was that the initial conversations that was happening?
exactly. And we were very, very active across all of these platforms. That is, as Al Roker Entertainment, Twitch included. I think we did the first ever live cooking show
Mhm.
on on Twitch. So we, Kevin, Gemma, and I were friendly, and then became friends, and then partners. We're partners in something called Taste Buds Entertainment. And as Kevin alluded to earlier, we really went long on media. So we've actually been on traditional linear cable TV with our shows for a couple of years now through a partner, Leap Media, Chris Pizzuro, who I had known in a previous life. And so we've been buying our own, blocks of traditional TV time. As you
So
alluded to.
like John McLaughlin, how he used to always buy slots for his McLaughlin group. You're buying like there's some cable
Exactly.
or
Yeah,
some.
and we have our own advertisers as well
Mhm.
through our partner Leap. So we bring in our own advertisers, our own content. We bring on additional shows, and that led us down the path of you're going to ask about fast and podcasting and covering the whole spectrum. We were on Delta Airlines as well over the last year and their entire fleet. So we really went long on media until we could really understand and see the gateway into the commerce side of our business,
So
which is
there was like some channel on Comcast. If I was flipping through the dial at the right time, your Gemma's like syndicated content was on that channel.
Yeah, and
exactly. Yes. So,
today it
yeah,
even has scheduled blocks right now
yeah,
on Saturday mornings.
And
Saturday
Claire.
afternoons as well. And so that's reoccurring, so we effectively have a block on some of these streaming and linear, cable networks right now, without attempting to say run a network there.
So like the way that works is you pay them to appear and then it's your job to then monetize through kind of traditional television advertisements that are going on there.
Effectively, I mean, we have a number of, we also syndicate, I should say, online as well through another partner. So we fill in a lot of gaps. But yes, as far as TV, there's always the time, the content, and then who's going to finance it, and we do that through our ad partners.
Mhm.
And
It tells.
Simon, another thing that we use it for is really to test and learn on TV, which is to say our first our first TV special was Gemma's Summer Desserts 2 years ago. Our goal with that is to test out QR codes and really try to understand the dynamics of viewing and calls to action. We ended up growing our email list by doing something like that, which is to say we had recipes there. You can get a free downloadable guide. Gemma did a call to action, and we're able to measure that sort of tune in and see. We've tested it with Gemma's books, and we believe we can effectively test it with other commerce as well. And so that goes back to that, content community commerce strategy.
Yeah, so you have the two cookbooks. What do you sell anything else? Like have you developed any other products or anything like that?
We haven't, but we just announced a partnership with Excel, that who has an extensive background in a lot of run direct to consumer sort of QVC type channels.
Exactly. Excel brands, it's
This
publicly
is a,
traded.
this is not Microsoft Excel. This is something different.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
CEL. Yeah, it's a traded company that we had gotten to know. So, we're creating new IP, which is a big part of what we're all about, right? Owning and controlling as much as we possibly can, self-financing, asset light. There are a lot of lessons that, we've tried to develop ourselves through experimentation, and Excel is a great partner. We are developing new products, new IP, and that will put us on to new platforms, which will then, lead to other things. So we have the media, and then now the commerce is starting to, develop in a number of ways.
So like when Gemma, obviously cooking and it like involves a lot of utensils and stuff like that, was she like putting affiliate links in the description of the YouTube? Like how were you, because even if you weren't developing your own products, were you trying to like drive affiliate sales or anything like that with the different products she was using and stuff like that?
Yes, we have absolutely have done that in the past. We haven't focused on it as much because again, we were primarily focused on that content, side of the business, less on the affiliate side because again, we go back to we're driving a lot of traffic and a lot of sales somewhere else. What we wanted to do was leverage that data to understand the audience better. So when we drive people to Amazon, we actually get the total market basket of what people buy when they click through us and when it's cookied. And so that was more valuable to us than the dollars for affiliate sales at that time. So we've leveraged that more so, and that is really part for what we do, which is we're very focused on the data. We have 11 years of incredible info across every platform, but we also do our own direct audience segmentation study to truly understand home bakers, and we believe it's the largest annual audience home baker study, which gives us a bit of a superpower. We call it our baking intelligence.
So about 2 or 3 years ago, you decide you want to do this fast channel. So let's walk through because that's obviously a big logistical thing. You need to have some kind of app that's appearing on like Roku and all the connected TVs. Like, was that just like a white label service that you utilized?
Yeah, I mean, I could just jump in a little bit and we
Uh,
can just do our current fast channel. We were
yeah.
very eager to create, the new food network, but as the global baking network, Bold
Mhm.
Baking. And it's hard to penetrate the business, right, of television networks. We looked at acquiring our own, we looked at partnering with our own, we looked at buying bigger blocks of time. And, frankly, we're a little bit frustrated by the process. We really didn't see a way out until the whole fast and it happened quickly, the whole space where we're like, if we're ever going to do this, now is the time with the advent of LG and Samsung and Vizio. And how were we going to do it? Well, we could build our own team internally, like we have with the social platforms, or we quickly find a partner. So that has been a long process of probably, I would say, kissing a lot of frogs until most recently we did
For sure.
partner with Future Today, who's been a terrific partner. They have a lot of experience in this space, the OTT space, which blends into this, sort of more buzzwords and acronyms for your listeners. But we knew we needed someone who got it, who had the relationships where we could focus on the marketing and the content. As Kevin alluded to earlier, we have a whole network of bakers from around the globe. So we have over 1,000 hours of baking content. We were worried about getting enough, and then all of a sudden we had like too much. So but it took us 2 years, I'd say, as that market was evolving to figure out the right way in. And even now, we just announced it at the New Fronts at the IAB event in New York a week or so ago, where we finally got in front, of advertisers and their agencies to kick it off officially. We're in business with Future Today, the Bold Baking Network. We're on Roku now on the apps, but hopefully that will then evolve, quickly into these other platforms.
So did they build you an app? Did they already have a template that they're using, or how did you actually make the app?
Yeah, Future Today has been at it for about 15 years. I mean, it's incredible. They were in streaming and in, again, the kind of OTT world before a lot of people were.
Yeah.
And when you talk about app, so really there are two different things here. One is getting on connected televisions can look like developing your own app, which again is like a mobile app, which is to say you develop your own, you ultimately will distribute, and then it's up to you for discoverability and everything. The fast channel is even a whole other avenue, as you probably know, which is to say, Samsung has 400, making that number up, but X number of channels. We have to go through and get approval from Samsung to be able to get listed in the lineup. And so Future Today has expertise in both arenas. So they helped us build our app, but also are working with us on the distribution and then ultimately the monetization as well with a direct ad sales team.
And so in terms of like amassing this 1,000 hours of content, so like, did you just make a spreadsheet of other baking creators and start going after them one by one? Like, how did you approach the actual,
Yes. Yes.
Okay, talk to me about that.
Literally, right? I mean, we had a couple hundred.
I have it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll jump in because we were all very deeply involved around the globe, TikTok, YouTube, websites. Some were strong on one platform, not on the other. As Kevin mentioned, we have, horizontal and then sort of vertically shot video. There were TV shows. So we have a pop star from South Africa, folks from the UK. We targeted Australian TV shows. We were looking for anything baking, Canada as well, that would want to jump onto our network. And we literally went one by one by one and reached out to them.
Yeah, and Simon, the reality is, I know it sounds like, okay, well, you just go get thousands of hours of content. The reality is, there really wasn't that much of this that was not owned by the Food Network or Bravo or somebody along those lines. Like, they have created actual, half hour, hour long TV shows and have tons of content. They own it all. Production companies have little to no ownership of their IP in most cases. And so even talking with production companies, nobody there had content to be able to license it. It was already also all licensed out. And so that's why, going back to the creator economy and going back to our foundation in creator-driven brands and creator-driven content. I love the term creator, not so much a fan of the word influencer, but creator-driven. That's when we started to find these gems. A Korean pastry chef who ended up becoming this, amazing professional, and now he's opened his own cookie shops in Korea. An Indian-born, lovely Muslim woman in New Zealand, a Brit, excuse me, a Scot in who actually baked cakes for the King and Queen of England. Like, so many amazing stories here that were never going to be told on other TV platforms. And most of them were already on YouTube, but YouTube, I can't say enough good things about it. And again, it is the foundation of us. But you are ultimately, even with YouTube viewership on a television, you are definitely at the mercy of algorithms.
Yeah.
Versus us having our ownership around a platform where people could expect to find us.
Also, we've gone really deep. We haven't gone broad into cooking generally, and many have approached us with this. We've stayed true to going very, very deep in baking. And part of the allure for me in dealing with, Kevin and Gemma originally was they were creating a new category. So fast is just one of the spokes, on our wheel, because we have linear, we have fast, we have podcasting, as we talked about, syndicated content. But for me, not being a baker myself, I like the fact that they were creating a new category, and it was underserved. And I think, that's a lesson. There are almost 2,000 fast channels in the world right now, but there's only one baking channel. There are a lot of Gunsmoke fast channels. You can and everything else. You can find it anywhere. But I think that's one of the keys here, particularly for creators. You have to really define the space you're going to own and then build it. It's fundamental, I think.
So for these creators, like, you're not pitching them on launching new shows. Is you're just saying, hey, you already have this archive of content, probably a lot of it on YouTube. You're probably under monetized. We're going to kind of pull all this content together, and we can, hopefully just drive additional revenue for you. And I'm guessing it's on like a revenue share basis versus like an upfront contract or something like that.
It is, and it's two things to start. It's what you said about, you have all this great content out there that's currently being distributed through YouTube. It's called syndication. It's not new. We would love to syndicate your content, but gather it in a place, in a destination that we're building out a community of passionate people. Like, that's incremental reach. We guarantee you there will be incremental reach there. Secondly, as we continue to get great data back about what people like and what people truly tune in and out of, we can go back to those creators and say, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Or more importantly, we've talked with a number of different people who had shows on the Food Network that just get canceled like that. But they have great ideas, and they have ideas that would work way better on our platform. We can create original shows that these people dreamed of for efficient budgets that never would have made it to, again, the traditional Discovery networks.
And as you mentioned, though, there's like hundreds and hundreds of apps on these channels, and you're also competing against the biggest fast streaming app of them all, which is YouTube. Dwarf, beating out every other major streamer, including Netflix. How do you drive, because I'm assuming that when I open my Roku homepage, I'm not seeing the bigger, bolder baking network on there. I have to go in and I have to actually search for that. And everything like that. How are you driving that kind of behavior?
We have, my background, I think a big part of Ron's background too, is in marketing. And so, we believe we built a brand that resonates, and we're expanding that brand in the Bold Baking Network. But we have to market. And what does marketing look like? But we already have, across our network, reach to 40 million baking fans. We have linear shows that are reaching 60 million households. When we truly turn on the network, because we're more so in soft launch right now, we're going to drive people there, just like I talked about earlier, how we did to our website, and how we can build a really, really strong funnel around that. The second is seasonality is a superpower, which is to say, Baking is not just for Christmas, baking is year round. Even during the summer, ice cream is part of pastry, is part of baking. And so we have 365 days a year of seasonal relevant content. And the programming is part of that strategy as well to say the Food Network may focus on aspects of gaming and a lot of its competition, but when it's a certain holiday or when it's a time frame or a certain time of year, especially around, say, Christmas, we are going to be that destination and that best resource for you. And so that's something that's going to be loud and clear across all of our other platforms and through our partners as well.
Well, like how much, obviously these bakers have collectively a pretty huge audience. How much do you anticipate them helping to promote the fast channel?
Yeah, it's definitely an expectation as far as we're giving them time slots. We're giving them blocks, and so at a minimum, what we want them to do is to be able to drive people to their time slot that is unique to YouTube, right? Like you can, we believe in tune in on YouTube. They're going to be able to have that same messaging and that same sort of ability to reach their audience around the Bolt Baking Network as well. And so we absolutely expect them to be able to help promote us. And we're going to make it easy for them too, which is to say, we know how to create social content that is great at connecting with people, great at engaging, and ideally converting them to, driving them to the network as well.
Yeah, Simon, you asked about YouTube. I mean, obviously, we've all worked with YouTube, been on YouTube for quite a while now, but that's just one platform. Obviously, it's a massive one and a terrific one. But Gemma has millions of followers there. But I think in today's world, you really have to think about being on many, in many channels, on many platforms, because you never know, as we've all seen recently, one may come, one may go, and you have to try to control, as much of it as you can, and then capture as much data as you can, because we really haven't talked about that, but like collecting fast linear TV data, YouTube data, website, podcast data. When you start looking at it, we have a whole dashboard that starts to aggregate each of these very disparate, channels, different audiences, and then they all have revenue streams attached to them. So there are a lot of layers to this that I think, once you get into it, you start to realize it takes time to really build out what we consider to be a platform.
When you open the fast channel, is it just like a grid of on-demand content, or is there some kind of component that's almost like flipping to a linear TV channel at all? Like what's it,
Yeah.
how do you actually present the content to people?
Yeah, so just to define it again, so fast in its name is basically based on a program guide. So when you're going to, and we are still in development on the fast channel as far as that is to come, but that will be a program guide, which is to say it's 11:38 in Los Angeles right now. There will be a show on that we have programmed and that you can tune into. On our app that is available now on Roku, the Bold Baking Network app, and soon to be on many platforms, that is definitely more what you would call video on demand, which is to say we curate the content that's on there. We highlight what is seasonally relevant, what makes sense, but that is definitely more of a video on demand type experience, and includes our content that we have today, our evergreen catalog of content, but we'll definitely include our originals that we plan to do in the future as well.
So I guess I'm confused here. So there's the on-demand app, and you said that there's something like at 11:38. Where is that thing that's like
Yeah,
live?
so FAST is free ad supported streaming television.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to get on Samsung, LG, part of Roku, the Roku Channels app. That is what you would call like they call it an EPG, which is basically an electronic program guide. It is your TV guide, and your TV guide for every single the TV guide exists for every channel that has a fast channel on those platforms.
So we're talking about like the Roku channel, like
The,
or is
the Roku channels.
well, like so you click on the app called Roku in the on the Roku menu, and it takes you into an ecosystem, and that's where this fast channel is going to be.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and another example is like Samsung TV Plus.
Hmm.
That is Samsung has curated, Ron said earlier, hundreds of channels that are everything from the Bold Baking Network to the Deal or No Deal channel, to Gunsmoke. And so those are specifically curated channels. One of the biggest differences is that the channels are laid out sequentially. So it's not the channel in the term of YouTube, it's actually programmed. So just
Hmm.
like linear cable today,
Hmm.
where the app side of it is more of a video on demand app. But just like a regular app, we
Hmm.
are able to curate that. We're able to show what's on the home screen, all of that.
I think
Yeah.
one challenge, so if we're a publisher or a content provider, you have to submit and then be accepted onto each platform individually.
Hmm.
You can't just press a button and we're on Vizio and LG and Samsung, and there's a long list. I wish we could. That's just in the US. If you start expanding internationally, it's then compounded. So we're in the rollout phase now of our channel, hopefully, onto all of these different platforms, and we started with Roku.
And what Ron alluded to earlier is when we've had the ability to give ourselves the green light and move forward versus waiting for gatekeepers, we've been way more successful. So fast is definitely an important part of our strategy, but fast isn't the only, because we're able to actually release the Bold Baking Network app separately as well. They're two completely different experiences.
And when you're in that fast channel like Samsung, or is Samsung handling all the ad sales and stuff like that and just doing a revenue share with you?
Depends on the deal, but typically yes.
Hmm.
It's evolving, which is to
Hmm.
say, depending on your deal, sometimes you can get some of the inventory to sell. Again, we have a direct sales partnership, with Future Today. Sometimes the platforms take 100% and then just give you what they find. Um, Big trick about fast is the analytics are not great. You are not getting passed through a lot of data. On the app side, it is much better because you've built your own app and we get a better and richer dashboard.
You know,
And then for,
to bring some of the conversation full circle, though, what's evolving is you have a Walmart with their massive e-commerce presence and retail presence acquiring last year Vizio. So now they have the screens, and I think that was like a $2.3 billion deal, more or less. And they also have one of the largest, second largest, I believe, retail media network. So it's leading into media and commerce, true clickable commerce. Amazon similarly, and then, YouTube, depending upon what happens, now has the ability, with Google to be in the commerce space. So what we've been doing very specifically is working with every platform, but also keeping an eye out on the type of, shoppable video commerce applications that are evolving on each of the platforms.
so for the on-demand app, are you selling your own ads for that?
Yes.
Hmm. And is that like hooking into like programmatic networks, or is that like, are you doing like bespoke deals, or do you have a
Both.
outside partner
A
that you're doing that?
mix. Yeah, it's both.
Yeah,
And
both.
then and then for the podcast network, what are you doing there?
So I can talk about that because I'm
Yeah,
now
please.
deeply involved with that. But I would say, on the question earlier about the fast and the programmatic, the fill rates, the amount of inventory being sold has been somewhat, I think, slow to develop. So it was like 30%, 40%, now up to 60%. Obviously, the goal is to sell 100% of the inventory. And that's why in some platforms, there are numerous ways to sell, with your partner, the ad space. As some of the players, like a Samsung, gets bigger, they want to capture more of that themselves. So that's one thing. Our relaunch of Need to Know, play on words, Need to Know, is Gemma's podcast. And when we relaunched it, a friend said, you should check out the Heritage Radio Network, HRN, which we really didn't know much about, but it was started in 2009 as a pirate radio station in Brooklyn, solely focused on the food and culinary arts sector. And so we partnered with them. One thing led to another, and now I'm personally very involved with the board of HRN. It's terrific, and it's actually the largest podcast network in the world for foodies. So it's allowed us, I'm playing both sides here now on Bold Baking with Gemma's show to capture a whole new audience. And I think very smartly, Kevin and Gemma are, putting it on video, so it's simultaneously on its own new channel is also going to YouTube. So we have effectively new TV shows, new video, as well as podcasts, which is now on like yours, Shopify and Pandora and Apple. So it's sort of what is developing, I think, across the board. We're coming at it from video into podcasting primarily. A lot of podcasters are now trying to, back into video, but not always that easy. I think it's probably easier to start with video, frankly. So that's how that piece fits into what we're doing.
So how is your company structured now in terms of staffing?
Ron said asset light, and you can use the words lean and mean. I mean, Simon, I'll tell you the story, which is, again, I came from, almost 20 years of large corporations, but my experience at Lucasfilm was beyond enlightening, especially that early on. And this is 2000 through 2008, we're talking pre-Disney. There was no Disney. There was no thought of it being sold. So don't even think about the last, whatever, how many years. It was such a lean and mean company. I reported into a guy who reported into George Lucas, and I was 25 years old. I was able to have the ownership, to be able to have the control, to be able to learn, to be able to test, to be able to grow. And that's the sort of environment that we create for our team. And so I initially thought we were building a media company, and I was building a media company probably in what a 20th century media company looked like, where today it's Ron, Gemma, and me, and we have a solid production team, and we have a social and a marketing team.
Is that like full-time people working for you, or those are like outside firms or something like that?
Contractors and a mix of outside firms. But what our strategy has really evolved into is finding great partners who already have built the sort of distribution or operations or whatever we need, and we're going to run fast with them. And do you know what? In a few years, do we bring it in-house? Do we build it? Do we buy it? That's an option and an opportunity. But rather than trying to do it by ourselves every time and build that overhead and infrastructure, we said that doesn't make sense financially. So that's what we've done with Future Today, with Excel, and it's definitely the way we look at scaling in a lot of ways here.
It's also more fun, frankly, because we've done all the big stuff over the years, and as we all got involved with the web, you can scale businesses much faster if there are fewer of you. And now we're doing it globally. So I mentioned earlier, we were on 990 Delta airplanes, and great. I don't know how many people saw it ultimately, but we have a lot of partnerships like that where it's like an accordion. We can scale up,
Yeah, and that was kind of my next point, kind of the closing point is, so many YouTube creators today, like their platform is YouTube. If they're doing any repurposing, it's like chopping up clips and putting it on like TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. But it sounds like what you guys are thinking is like, we already have the content, but like there's so many different other places that content can live, whether it's Delta Airlines or a linear TV station or a radio station. Yeah. And so like we just need to take this content that we're already creating and put it in, license it out, or find other ways to monetize it outside of this YouTube ecosystem, which is like something that I don't think most, even the biggest YouTube channels, still are not even really thinking that much about.
And Simon, we also have this, it is a mission to serve this audience. Like, we do believe we're going after home bakers. We want to be everywhere home baking is, because there really isn't a trusted authority for baking that reaches all parts of the US and the world, really. And so that's what we are obsessed with right now. And that's why the platforms are the spokes, as Ron mentioned. And we're just going to continue to grow and reach, and we want to be as big as possible, but we want to build and we want to bring them back to our core brand, and a durable brand at that. That's what's most important to us, rather than just go sell a TV show or even get a million view, millions of views on something. It's like it's the aggregate of that
Right.
reach and that connection with the audience.
Right.
Okay,
I
Ron.
think that's
Oh,
a
sorry.
challenge. I think, particularly for creators, they have to look at themselves as businesses. And you have to take as much control, what you can control and not control. And we think about it a lot. And I think it's going to become more apparent over the next couple of years as these creators build even more categories. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes like basically a Ron, someone who has that kind of experience and who can like just focus on that part of the business. Like I'm kind of searching for my own Ron right now and talking to various people and
Ron's
it's like
here. Ron's here, Simon. You hear that, Kevin?
You're
It takes
busy.
Ron.
but like I mean you really do need someone who's just like kind of separate from the content and can just focus on building those other parts of the business, and I think that's where a lot of creators are kind of struggling.
Well, and
True.
I
Partners.
think
Takes partners, really.
Well, and I think on the reverse too, though, is that I know a lot of folks in traditional entertainment, and what they lack, they have some of that business expertise. They have a lot of the creative and the
Hmm.
content side. What they lack is the IP,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that is incredibly important. And what everybody's realizing is you may be the most famous actor or actress in the world, but unless you own part of the back end, that's not even enough. You need to own your own IP. And
Hmm.
that's what we're really excited about going forward is continue to build out our IP and continue to grow ours and other people's as well.
Okay, Kevin and Ron, those are all the questions I have for you. Where can people find you online?
You can find us at biggerbolderbaking.com. The Bold Baking Network is currently on Roku, and really it's Bigger Bolder Baking across any platform out there for the best in baking and to give anyone the confidence to bake.
All right, well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for your interest.
Thank you.